It's Monday, March 31st, 2025. Same story, different day. These judges are out of control. Banning welfare funds for soda. RFK Jr. wants to make that happen. And something healthy happened on the right this weekend. I'll tell you what next on the AM Update.
That we're done being the piggy bank of the entire world.
Well, it was made aware to me this evening that NBC actually has a video that's never been seen before because it allegedly shows Oswald near the vehicle when the assassination took place.
And these companies are now, just like the tobacco companies were, are flooding into the offices of your state leaders and legislatures and the governor.
You know, the birth rate is very low. In almost every country. Unless that changes, civilization will disappear.
Same story, different day. A U.S. federal judge on Friday extended his already unlawful, let's just call it that, temporary halt to President Donald Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act in order to deport Venezuelan gang members. This is Judge James Boasberg, again, trying to play God, King, and President all at the same time. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said over the weekend, quote, there are 677 local district judges. Under current procedure, the president needs unanimous consent from all 677 to implement a major decision. If just one communist out of 677 unelected judges disagree, the action is frozen nationwide. This is not democracy. This is tyranny. Absolutely correct from Stephen Miller. Also over the weekend, Donald Trump reacted to the latest usurpation of his power by corrupt district judges. He said in a post on Truth Social, quote, people are shocked by what is going on with the court system. I was elected for many reasons, but a principal one was law and order, a big part of which is quickly removing a vast criminal network of individuals who came into our country through the crooked Joe Biden open borders policy. These are dangerous and violent people who kill, maim, and many other ways, harm the people of our country. The voters want them out and said so in record numbers. If it was up to District Court Judge James Boasberg and other radical leftist judges, nobody would be removed. The president wouldn't be allowed to do his job, and people's lives would be devastated all through our country. Make America great again. So Donald Trump, along with Stephen Miller, the White House, again, reacting to the latest usurpation of their duly vested power from the American people. Again, this is a problem, and it seems like closer and closer we're heading to an inflection point. In other news, this caught my eye over the weekend. This is Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna on Fox News reacting to the release of the JFK files. She's heading up that committee that's looking into all the files about 9/11, the RFK and JFK assassinations and others. And she made this pretty stunning, I think, revelation about newly uncovered and never before seen footage.
That he doesn't think all of the documents have been released. Is that your understanding, too?
Yeah, so we're actually in the process of tracking down two specific documents. And also, too, Jesse, I would like to actually tell the American people, it was made aware to me this evening that NBC actually has a video that's never been seen before. We're actually going to be sending a letter requesting that from NBC because it allegedly shows Oswald near the vehicle when the assassination took place, which means that he couldn't have been the shooter. So, again, we're tracking down all this information. But look, there's even a CIA document that came out that Mr. Morley pointed out that actually said that the CIA never bought the lone gunman theory. And so I think the American people had an inclination as to what we were saying, but we never had the hard evidence until now.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. The Morley that she referred to there is Jefferson Morley, who is set to testify in front of her panel on April 1st. That seems like a pretty stunning revelation, though, going back to the original point of that clip, which is that NBC has actually had in their possession never before seen video supposedly shows that Oswald was near the vehicle when the assassination took place. That would change things incredibly. The State Department is absorbing the remaining operations and programs from the U.S. Agency for International Development, upending its function as an independent agency. That's according to an internal USAID memo. While USAID has historically functioned as an independent agency, of course, President Trump has appointed Secretary of State Marco Rubio to serve as its acting administrator for the organization. And amid concerns, USAID, of course, didn't advance U.S. core interests, which is absolutely true. So again, this thing is totally in flux. We've got some district courts telling Elon Musk and Doge they can't do anything to USAID. Here is Secretary of State Rubio completely absorbing the rest of what remains of USAID. There's no building that's actually officially the headquarters of USAID anyway. This is like Schrodinger's cat, or maybe let's say Schrodinger's USAID. Is USAID dead or alive? Both, I think. Hey, you remember this guy from Venezuela who went viral around this time last year?
Mi gente, he pensado invadir una casa en United States.
Yeah, that dude went viral on TikTok from Venezuela for telling illegal aliens how to invade homes in America, how to invade homes and take advantage of progressive squatting laws in blue states. Well, the White House confirmed over the weekend that individual has been deported. Good news. All right, what you're about to hear is the voice of Congressman Tim Burchett in an exchange he had with his paid Democrat stalker. Now, Democrats do this all the time. It's more prevalent on campaign trails, but they hire these individuals to just track every single Republican movement in and around the Capitol, and really when they're back at their home districts, too, in some cases. This is an exchange that went down late last week. Listen to this.
Do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret?
Do you trust your mother every night to fix your hot pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on?
It's Congressman Tim Burchett turning to the young man and saying, do you trust your mother every night to make sure you have hot pockets and make sure your Game Boy is all charged up? Yeah, the only problem there is that the dude, the stalker, stalking Congressman Burchett is so young, I'm not even sure he knows what a Game Boy actually is. Interim Columbia University President Katrina Armstrong has stepped down amidst a clash with the Trump administration over federal funding. David J. Greenwald, chair of the Board of Trustees at Columbia, said in a Friday news release, quote, Dr. Armstrong accepted the role of interim president at a time of great uncertainty for the university and worked tirelessly to promote the interests of our community. Katrina has always given her heart and soul to Columbia, yada, yada, yada. Media also confirmed that the Board of Trustees co-chair Claire Shipman has been appointed as the acting university president until the board completes its presidential search. Shipman has been on the board since 2013. Armstrong is expected to return to lead the university's Irving Medical Center. The Trump administration recently pulled out $400 million of federal funding to Columbia University with the imperative that Armstrong make substantial changes on campus. The proposed agreement, summarized in a letter shared by Armstrong, outlines the substantive work that Columbia has undertaken since last August when former President Minouche Shafik stepped down. Columbia agreed to demands from the administration to ban masks for the purpose of concealing identity on campus, as well as appoint a senior vice provost to oversee the school's Department of the Middle East. After much violence on campus, Columbia must also hire 36 new campus police officers with the ability to arrest students and violent protesters. Well, what do you think about this? This is from Zero Hedge. Texas administered 15,000 more measles vaccinations this year compared to 2024, and now there's a growing measles outbreak, so-called, that surpassed the total number of cases reported in the entire United States last year. The news follows Zero Hedge's February report that measles cases in Gaines County, Texas, jumped 242% following a health district campaign to hand out free measles vaccines. A measles outbreak after higher vaccination rates in Texas calls into question the shot's claimed effectiveness and underlying designs. Again, that's from Zero Hedge. You can read the rest of the article over there. So now, 15,000 more MMR shots in Texas this year than last year already. I mean, we're only in almost April. And now they have an outbreak that exceeds the total numbers of measles cases in the entire country last year. That's just a wonderful little helmet sticker there for these vaccine campaigns. I mean, what in the world is going on? When we come back, yet another aviation close call. We could be getting closer to banning welfare funds from being used for soda. And one thing that keeps Elon Musk up at night. That's all coming up next. A close call between a Delta Airlines Airbus A319 taking off from Reagan Washington National Airport and a U.S. Air Force T-38 jet, often used by the military for training, sounded alarms in the cockpit of the passenger plane on Friday. Delta 2983 was departing Reagan Airport around 3:15 p.m. and heading towards Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport for a regularly scheduled flight. Delta did not identify the other jet involved, but a review of tracking data from Flight Radar 24 shows an Air Force T-38 jet flying past the Delta plane and DCA airport, going more than 350 miles per hour at 800 feet. The military jet took off and landed at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia. The Delta aircraft was cleared for takeoff at around 3:15 in the afternoon, while 4 U.S. Air Force T-38 Talons were inbound to Arlington National Cemetery for a flyover. The Delta aircraft received an onboard alert that another aircraft was nearby, and air traffic controllers issued corrective instructions to both aircraft. The FAA says it's going to investigate the incident. So yet another aviation near miss, this time at Reagan National Airport. That's the same one where that deadly incident occurred earlier this year. Again, involved a civilian passenger jet and a military aircraft. Again, it seems like an increasing refrain with these particular stories when it comes to aviation. How can this keep happening? And is it just a figment of our imaginations? Because I'm at the point now where I'm not really sure. It certainly seems like we're seeing more of these stories, but at the same time, it could just be that the powers that be, whatever those powers are, whatever those motivations are just trying to stoke fear, or maybe this just gets clicks. I don't know. What do you think? Is this all just a figment of my and others' imaginations, or do you think really seeing something nefarious unfolding? HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says we're one step closer to making sure welfare funds can't be used to purchase soft drinks.
All of them are getting calls every day from the big soda companies, the sugar soda and the fake food companies. We're not eating food, we're eating food-like substances. And these companies are now, just like the tobacco companies were, are flooding into the offices of your state leaders and legislatures of the governor. And they're telling him he's making a big mistake. They're telling him that they're going to stop writing checks, that they're going to run people against them, that they're going to destroy their political careers. And Governor Morrissey was telling me that he met with the soda companies this week. And they said to him, you need to be educated about this. And they said, food stamps is not a nutrition program. He came in with his Diet Coke and he said, is there anything nutritious in here? And they were like, no, of course not. But food stamps is not a nutrition program. And he said, it's called SNAP, Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program. It's supposed to be nutrition. It's not supposed to be food-like substances that are actually poisoning us. And so, but it takes a lot of courage to stand up to these companies the same way that it did to stand up to big tobacco. But these men and women, your leaders, Governor Morrissey, is standing up for you. And we all need to stand up for ourselves and take care of ourselves. It's an act of patriotism. If you love this country, you need to start taking care of yourselves.
RFK Jr., HHS Secretary, announcing the Trump administration is now going to allow states to ban food stamps, or SNAP, from being used to purchase soda. So this is, I think, is a step in the right direction, for sure. Right? You're not going to have I would prefer not to have a welfare state at all, but if we're going to have one, can we at least make sure that welfare is being used to purchase something closer to actually nutritious foods for families who maybe can't afford a full diet by themselves, a full good diet by themselves? Could we get closer to something in that direction rather than just allowing SNAP to be used for really things that are the least healthy products maybe on shelves right now, which is, of course, pop. And now here's this. Elon Musk of Doge sat down with Bret Baier recently, and he was asked what keeps him up at night. This is a billionaire, the richest man in the world. Surely he's not scared about anything. You would be wrong.
What's the biggest thing for you that keeps you up at night?
Well, there's a lot of things, I suppose, that I worry about, but and some of these things will seem esoteric to people. The birth rate is very low in almost every country. And it's something, unless that changes, civilization will disappear. America had the lowest birth rate, I believe, ever. That was last year. Places like Korea, the birth rate is 1/3 replacement rate. So that means in 3 generations, Korea will be 3 or 4% of its current size. And nothing seems to be turning that around. Humanity is dying. And people, it's just not something we evolved to react to. And I worry generally about the strength of America. You know, America is the central column that holds up all of Western civilization. So if you've got the temple of Western civilization, America is the central column. If that column fails, it's all over. You can't run off to New Zealand or some other place. It's over. So either we strengthen that column and make sure America is strong and will be strong for a long time, or that roof's coming down.
Elon Musk on what keeps him up at night, and his answer after thinking about it for 15 seconds is the collapsing birth rate. And yes, if I were a man of science and I was just honest about it, if I were a true man of science, like actual science, not science that we saw during COVID, and I was trying to think, hey, what are the key foundational pillars of civilization itself? I would come to the conclusion that it is birth rate. Can we at least get to replacement rate instead of the collapse that we have seen over the West the past generation? I would come to that honest conclusion. Again, a man of science, science alone. That is a good explanation. That's a good fear to have if you're somebody like Elon Musk. But it's not a sufficient deduction of what's really going on here. Change has to happen at the heart first. Even if you were able to wave a magic wand, and overnight, every single female of childbearing age and every single male of productive age got together, got married, and started making babies, that's not going to solve all of our problems. Now, is that a good thing? Yeah, it's a lot better than where we are right now, and I think that's objectively true. If we started having more young people having more babies, I think that's a good thing. But ultimately, that family isn't going to survive unless there is a pillar, a central column, if you will, to use Elon Musk's phrase, of their own lives. And they're only going to find that through Jesus. So, again, I appreciate Elon Musk, and I really do, and I think he's on the right track, all things considered. But his explanation and his fears, well-founded though they may be, are not sufficient into actually turning around what needs to be turned around, which is in the West and in the United States, that we're still a part of that. The heart of man is still very hard. And we need more Jesus more often. Fortunately, we've seen some data recently, talked about that a few weeks ago. Seemed to be indicating that younger people, millennials and Zoomers, are starting to go back to church. Hopefully that is borne out in the long run. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. Vice President J.D. Vance was in Greenland over the weekend, where a reporter asked him a question about retaliatory tariffs from countries like Canada. Sorry for the audio quality, especially early on in this clip.
But the Canadian leadership threatening retaliatory tariffs against the United States, as President Trump often says, they just don't have the cards. There is no way that Canada can win a trade war with the United States. What President Trump has said is that he wants to level the playing field. For decades, Canadian leadership has forced American farmers and American manufacturers to play by an unfair set of rules. All President Trump has said is that we're done playing by an unfair set of rules. If you're going to do something to our industries, then we're going to do something back to your industries. That's how you protect American manufacturing, and that's how you protect American jobs. Now, what I'd say to the American people is look, the president ran on this, and he said very clearly that we're done being the piggy bank of the entire world. For 40 years, in the same way that our European friends, I think, have neglected international security, for 40 years, a lot of our friends all over the world have used America as a piggy bank. They have used us to absorb all of their excess economic production. What does that mean for Americans? For Americans, that's meant manufacturing jobs declining. That's meant middle-class wages going down. That's meant whole towns that have been hollowed out by empty factories. And that means an America that is less safe because our manufacturing isn't as powerful now as it was 30 years ago. I've got all these brave Americans in front of me and a few behind me too. We want to send, if God forbid we have to send Americans to war, we want them to have weapons, the best weapons in the world that are manufactured in America and not in China. The way you do that is to rebuild the American manufacturing sector. The days of America being the piggy bank of the world, the days of closed factories, the days of people not being able to get a middle-class job in this country, they're over. And yes, that means we're going to have to fight back even against some of our friends and their unfair economic practices, but the long-term consequence of this is going to be higher wages, more manufacturing, and more economic security for the American people.
So that is Vice President J.D. Vance, once again, for the latest time, articulating the true America First, Donald Trump economic policy. This is what he really believes, and it does absolutely, and I admit that fully, fly in the face to even what Republicans believe good economic policy should be. And it was in response to that video, and again, this is not the first time that Vice President Vance has laid out that vision to the world. What you just heard there is not new. It's not a new thing at all. In response to that video, a writer for Red State, that's the online right-wing publication, a writer for there named Bonchi. To my knowledge, this individual has never actually been not anonymous. Bonchi laid out a retort to Vice President Vance, criticizing him for not answering the specific questions about how tariffs are going to impact people here and now, or in the short term. Also said that we also have hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs available in this country, which hundreds of thousands, I think it was like 400,000. I would actually read portions of the post that Bonchi did, retorting to J.D. Vance, but Bonchi deleted it later. Again, pointing out we have hundreds of thousands, 300,000 or 400,000 manufacturing jobs available. Bro, we have hundreds of millions of people who live in this country, so that's not very many manufacturing jobs available. And just basically regurgitating the unfettered free trade policy of really both parties over the past generation. And the way that Bonchi laid out his argument, and Bonchi is really right on a lot of stuff, and I enjoy following him, or her, I don't know, because they're anonymous. He's really right on a lot of stuff. Very right-wing, even further right, I think, than J.D. Vance is on some issues. But Bonchi laid it out in his argument, his retort to J.D. Vance, what you just heard from J.D. Vance. He laid it out in a way that wasn't exactly respectful. I didn't think anyway. So J.D. Vance came right back at Bonchi and said this brain-dead liberalism pretending to be conservatism that saw the U.S. go from the world's manufacturing superpower to one in which the PRC, that would be China, makes nearly twice as much as we do, is what got us here, and where if the small island of Taiwan fell to an invasion, we'd be hurled into a Great Depression. Vance goes on and to refute some of the points that Bonchi tried to make. So, J.D. Vance articulates America First economic policy. Bonchi, an old school conservative writer for Red State, which is an old school conservative website, comes back at him pretty disrespectfully, articulates kind of the old failed strategy of the last 40 years of unfettered free trade. J.D. Vance comes right back at him just as strongly and tries to disabuse him of some of his presuppositions. Number one, 2 points I want to make this morning. Number one. So this is the debate that's going on right now. This is the debate between what is actually America First economic policy versus what is whatever the hell the economic policy was of yesteryear. Number one, this debate is healthy. And yeah, Bonchi was not respectful, and neither was J.D. Vance. But Bonchi was the one who started it here, and so J.D. Vance just responded in kind. This is good. This is something that the left does not do. The left just cancels its own. It eats its own as soon as anyone doesn't toe the line of the cult, the furthest left instincts of that party. You just saw that, and I pointed this out a couple of weeks ago with Gavin Newsom, basically saying, hey, maybe we should cool it on the trans stuff. He started a civil war in their party for saying that. But over on our side, it's healthy to have debates, even if they get hot and testy every now and again. So that's the first thing I want to say. And this is the debate on this economic policy that's going on right now. Secondly, in terms of the actual specifics of this debate, I just want to give the America First economic policy a try. I want to give tariffs a try. I want to give it the most benefit of the doubt. And here's why. It's a radical departure from what we've been experiencing over the last generation, and really a generation and a half, of unfettered free trade and globalism. That has led us to where we are now. and it's leading us to an even darker place. A place that we cannot recover from. The argument against America First economic policy, particularly when it comes to trade, tariffs, some call it protectionism, things of that nature. The arguments against it are that we're going to end up in the same place that we were already going. I don't know if that's true, but I want to find out. So again, this debate is healthy, and number two, I want to give the old college try to Donald Trump's economic vision, particularly when it comes to trade. That's all I'm saying. Let me know what you think at Real AM Update on X and Instagram. That'll do it for Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.